Hi everyone, Diana Rankin here with your weekly soul messages and psychic predictions. Well, we're just going to talk more soul messages than predictions this week because the big prediction it's going to be we're in for some rough times, and you've been hearing me say that. It's not news, um, but I want to help you get through those rough times. So, what we talked about this week is I talked to Philip, and here's what I wrote to Philip. I said, because I talk a lot to Philip in my journals, and this is, what is this? This is number 166. So, and I'm nearly at the end of this one. I've been journaling my whole life, but the last several years, I want to say in the last 15, 20 years, I've been filling up more and more journals. A lot of my younger years, maybe I had less time to do that. I'm not sure. But the last several years, it's just seemed even more important than it did before. So here's one of the ways I talk to Philip. I also just talk to Philip like I'm talking to you. And certainly when I'm working with private clients, Philip is coming through. If I'm standing in an audience talking to people, I say, I always feel Philip up here, sometimes on the left, but up in here. And we may argue. Uh, and people can tell me, they can tell if I'm just channeling Philip's words or if I'm interpreting them. And the reason being is Philip tends to be a little harsher, shall I say. Um, and what's interesting to me is when I hear Philip, he says, say these words, and I don't, the person getting the message doesn't hear me when I soften it out. So over the years, I've learned try not to soften it too much, just give his words. And then those of you, many of you who watch my videos here on YouTube every week, you suggested just read what Philip says. And boy, you just made it so much easier for me. So thank you so much. So I'm going to read what Philip says about the 2020 shift and stress and how we deal with it. Then I'm going to tell you about a stressful situation I've been dealing with in my life this week. And then we are going to find some ways in addition to what Philip tells us, a couple of things that I do. It is the third week of January, the third full week of January, or the third week, it's only the second full week. But it's the third week of January, and it's January 12th through the 18th. So Sunday through Saturday, 12 to 18. I have to look at those numbers, and I've been known to get them wrong. So here we go. My question to Philip was the 2020 shift and stress. I felt the shift when I woke January the 1st. And others have told me they felt it too, which has been really, some of you on our conversation here, our comments, you've told me you felt it. Others have personal friends or people who have studied with me have called or emailed or whatever and said, I felt it. So a lot of us felt that shift, and that shift, which I talked about last week, and maybe even the week before, I'm not sure, no, last week. That shift was to one of hope, to one of a lightness. I think it was last week. I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look myself. But anyway, it was this shift. And I woke up and I felt there's a lightness, there's a hope. And that makes sense because we moved into a new decade. We moved into a new year. We moved into a whole new day and a whole new period of time. So it is exciting. However, then the next day came, and that next day, shortly after January 1st, things didn't go so well, and that caused a lot of stress. So when we felt that opening of the shift to hope, to lightness, to a better, happier life for everyone, when we felt that, what happened is we also knew it wasn't going to stay open, that it was going to close up again. But once that light opens, there's no closing it entirely. It may just kind of try to come together, but it's open. So the light has been opened, the shift has been made. Now, that said, I knew it was the shift to hope to light. I also knew there were dark days ahead. but to not give up hope, because once the door of light is open, you can't close it. That's what I wrote to Philip. And here's what Philip wrote back. I still said, it sure seems it's a struggle to keep the door open. Talk to us about what's going on and how we can deal with the stress that we're experiencing and that is coming. And here's what Philip said. It is first of all necessity that you know holding the world in divine sacred light has had an immense impact on the human's powers and misguided intentions. I need to repeat that because we so often feel powerless that we can't do anything, and I cannot express it strongly enough. What Philip just said here. It is first of all necessity that you know holding the world in divine sacred light has had an immense impact on the human's powers and misguided intentions. And here's why. Here's what we averted with our holding the world in love. Ready? This is how powerful you are. War has not yet been averted, but was postponed and can be stopped. War has not yet been averted, but was postponed and can be stopped. That is how powerful we are together, each of us. That's how powerful you are. Please continue to hold your planet in loving energy to help it heal from the anger that threatens it. It is for each person to see their own power and bring it together for the collective good of all. This brings forth the shift that was predicted by the ancient ones, myself included. Now, not me, that's Philip speaking, not me, okay? Philip, he's the ancient one, and we all are, but we're talking the ancient masters here. I wasn't an ancient master. Philip was, and he was my teacher. Each who hears my word plays a role assigned and accepted before birth. Each chose to be a part of ushering in the new energy. So if you're listening to this, if you're hearing this voice, my voice, but Philip's voice, each who hears my word plays a role assigned and accepted before birth. Each chose to be a part of the ushering in the new energies. That's how important you are and how powerful. Philip goes on to say, you felt the shift of the new energy. This sensitivity, however, does call for caution in taking in energies that cause stress in the emotions and in turn the body. The energies of opposite will continue to conflict as the year progresses. This will affect all beings. Those sensitive to it will understand the stress that is related to these opposing energies and use ways to deal with the stress that aids their lives. Those who are unaware of what is taking place will take out their stress on others and on their bodies until they lift their awareness. It is for each individual to be aware of their thoughts and emotions that arise from those thoughts. Of course, it is not possible to be aware of every thought, but it is possible to become aware of many. As you monitor your thoughts, you will become aware of repeated and escalating thoughts that come about rapidly, tightening the muscles and bringing on stress. Being aware of these thoughts allows you to choose to de-escalate or to continue. To continue, of course, allows the stress to continue and build. To de-escalate requires you to look beyond the thought to see what is beneath the thought. You are not the thought. By asking yourself, what is beneath this thought, you are asking yourself, what is beneath this stress? In doing so, you will learn what is the truth of what you must heal within your life, for this is where the stress truly comes from. What is the thought beneath the thought? As you learn this answer, you may then ask yourself what it is you are to change, what action you are to take. There are many helpful ways to relax the body and the mind. These are needed to be practiced as you learn that you are not the thought, but you are that which is behind the thought. And then I wrote, thank you, Philip. Change the thought and we change the outcome. And Philip said, that is correct. Now, that's what Philip is saying. And what I'm saying is, yes, but you know what? That's not always easy to do. We can't always just change our thoughts because sometimes our thoughts get a hold of us. And so I want to tell you one of my stories and what I do. And thank you. I want to take a moment just to welcome everybody here. Hey, Carmen. Hey. And Deborah, thank you for being here. So what we're going to do next is I am going to get a message from Philip. Now, this is my Oracle book. And thank you all, by the way, for coming and coming back and telling your friends. Thank you for your comments alive. Thank you for your comments below. I do read them. I don't always get around to answering them. And I get behind on that, so forgive me. But this is an Oracle book. And each page has a different wisdom. People tell me that they use this before they go to bed at night to get the message for the next day. I tend to use it, and I've done that. I tend to use it in the morning when I sit down. Every morning I sit down after I feed the kids, because if I don't, I won't be able to meditate. But I sit down and I meditate, and then I journal. And when I'm journaling, I get my morning message. So we're going to get a message from Philip. But I want to first of all tell you about a stressor that was in my life, how I behaved shamefully and how I dealt with it. And then I want to also just tell you, this is about creating joy in your life. It's one of my books, Joy, the Art of Living a Happy Life. It's 52 practices to create happiness and break the addiction to unhappiness. This will also help de-stress, and there are 52 different practices. So if one doesn't work, you go to another, but it's one for each week. It's a great way to start the new year. Both of these books, by the way, are available on Amazon. But I want to tell you about what happened in my life this week. And it's been kind of a difficult week because I haven't been getting any sleep. And let me tell you why. I want to first of all say it's been kind of a rough year for many of us. I know 5 of my friends passed on into spirit world this year, and another one is in the hospital, and we're saying lots of prayers and healing for her. So it's not been the easiest time. It's always hard to say goodbye to those we love, but we welcome them on their new journey. Now, that said, between grieving and work and the weather here where I am in Ohio is 60 degrees one day and 3 degrees the next. I mean, it's really been crazy. And I know that that's going on everywhere. And the wildfires in Australia, and so much is going on that's causing stress in our life. Well, my specific stress had to do with a couple of animals. And my animals are fine. Excuse me, Daisy's fine. She's over here asleep. Well, she was. She may not be for long. But this happened to be, I have a crawl space under the house, and this happened to be 2 animals got under there. One I think was a cat, and one I think was a raccoon, or it might have been a squirrel. Honestly, I'm not sure. Well, we plugged up every place where animals could get under. We used an air horn to scare them out in case they were under there before we plugged up all the dirt holes that they had dug in under the deck or under the any place that we thought they could get in. After we did that, guess what? They got back in anyway. And so at 2:00 in the morning, they would wake me up. And the first night this happened, I got up and I used the air horn on the wall. I pounded on the wall. I was ready. I didn't scream, but I did, "Get out of here, you nasty little critters." I was going at it. Pretty soon, poor Daisy was panting. She was petrified. The house cats had gone off running because I scared them with my pounding and air horn and yelling at this poor animal trapped under the house, making all this terrible noise. And if you've ever had animals trapped under your house, you know what I'm talking about. Especially, and there was more than one, because I could hear them fighting. I could hear the And it sounded like a raccoon, and it also sounded like a cat. Well, I do have 3 outdoor cats that live on the front porch, but I checked them and they looked fine, so nobody looked hurt. So it might have been 2 raccoons. Sometimes it's hard to tell. Might have even been a squirrel. I don't know what it was, but I was angry and I was so upset. I didn't get any sleep that night. So the next day, I was exhausted, no sleep, and all that anger. And while I was trying to calm myself down, I said, okay, get your journal out, start writing what you're grateful for. But it wasn't working because all this noise was still taking place. I'd go pound on the wall, use the air horn, poor Daisy's panting, which is making me more upset. So I said, wait a minute, this is not working. Writing gratitude. I couldn't calm down enough. It wasn't working. After writing a page or so of all these things I am grateful for, I was still, right? Music. Okay, I put on calming music because usually calming music helps, but I was wound up. That wasn't going to help. And the more I was wound up, the more my animals were wound up. The more I was wound up. It's a vicious cycle, isn't it? So finally, I put on some dance music and I danced it out of my body. And as I danced it out of my body, the noise under the house calmed down. Then I could put on soothing music and calm down. I got a little bit of sleep. And finally I said, this isn't working. I've got to do something else. I talked to Phillip. What do I do? What we decided to do, Phillip, mentor guide that he is, spirit guide, wise being, said, why don't you try talking to the animals? Well, lo and behold, instead of yelling at them, I talked to them. And they went away. Just talk through the wall, telling them you don't belong here. Leave. In the meantime, we did go out and reinforce the holes that we found. That night, it wasn't quite as noisy, but there were still animals there. And I found places they had moved all of the reinforcement, torn down the fence, moved stones, dug deeper holes under the logs that we piled up, the stones that we piled up, just dug deeper holes, or went to another place. Talked to them again. And finally, I think they're gone. But what I had to do was change my mindset. I had to practice what I preach, so to speak. And that's not an easy thing to do, to change our thoughts, especially when we're in the middle of the stress, especially when we're in the middle of that anger or that frustration. And I always say, this is not a day for a phone solicitor to call. That's my rough days. But I don't want to live there. I don't want to spend a sleepless night because I'm upset. So what I did, in addition to what I've told you, is I also said, I need to look beneath. After I wrote this out, what Phillip said, look beneath. So I kept looking beneath. What is really beneath my stress here? Why am I so angry at these animals? Now, I am very noise sensitive. That's part of it. That's going to stay. That's not going to go anywhere. But what's beneath my stress? And I started thinking, okay, who do we call? Who do we go for help to get these animals out from under the house? Oh gosh, what is that going to cost? What damage are they doing? Where's the money to pay for all of this going to come from? And kept going more and more deeper and started thinking, it's about helplessness. It's also about it's about there are wars in the world and I feel helpless to change that. And that's when I kept going deeper and deeper and saying, wait a minute, I'm not helpless. I do have power. Wait a minute, I will know who to call when it's time to call someone. The money to pay will be there. It's about believing, it's about creating, and it's about faith. Let's see what Phillip has to say, shall we, on our message this week. What we're doing in this world, I just want to add this, what we are doing in our world right now is very difficult, and I don't want to say it's easy. This is tough. But as one of my old teachers, Gene Houston, used to say, we are the people, now is the time. And as Phillip reminds us, we chose this before we came in. We can do it together. Okay, think left page or right page as we just flipped through. There, that's the page we're going to go to. If you thought right page, that's what I'm feeling, and that just means you picked up the message. If you got left page, that's okay. That doesn't mean your intuition isn't working, but it may be a specific message for you. So right page says, Beethoven was without hearing, and yet he heard music. Beethoven was without hearing, and yet he heard music. My friends, this tells me that that spirit has opened the door of hope, the door of light. It opens. It is open. And Beethoven may not hear it, but he still created music. We may not at this moment in our lives see the hope, feel the hope. It's there, my friends. It is there. I promise you. The other side says, even free rent cost. Even free rent cost. So we don't get anything for nothing. And I read both of them because I always think both of them really do have a message for us. So I thank you, Carmen. I thank you, Deborah. I thank you, each and every one of you, for continuing to do the work. I do believe, as with social media, it gets a lot of things aren't good about social media, but let's use it for good. And we went around and we said, let's bring on the rain. I received a message from a friend, Solar, and she said, let's see the rain in Australia. We did bring on the rain. Yes, a lot happened first, and a lot was sad and uncomfortable, but we did bring on the rain. We did avert war. Let's keep the rain going in Australia, not to the flood point, but to put the fires out. Let's keep our planet in love. Thank you, my friends. Thank you for the love you send to Daisy and the kitties and those animals that hopefully aren't under the crawl space anymore, but if they are, send them love and tell them to get out of here. Have a wonderful week. Thank you, Deborah. I love you all. Until next week. Thank you for loving us, and thank you for receiving our love. Now let's see if I can end this